It says can't connect.
The guest one?
Yeah, it says CB guest open cannot connect. Let's see.
I don't know. I used to be a member here.
Okay.
So it might be that they have put a password now. The guest one didn't have a password. You should be able to connect. Okay, let me figure out what the...
Alright, you have a nice day.
Let's see.
Okay? Alright.
Whenever you get a chance, just let me know. Because that suddenly it disappeared.
Oh, you still couldn't connect?
Yeah, it first said can't. It wasn't even a password issue, and now it's no longer even available. So one of these other ones.
Let me go. It should be. I'm connected to WeWork, but you're not connecting to that. You're connecting to guest WeWork. WeWork guest, and that one.
Okay.
WeWork guest.
CB guest. Okay, so I can use WeWork.
Yeah. The WeWork guest.
Okay.
Okay, so.
I'll tell you as soon as I'm on.
We have one person who is now logged in through the YouTube channel. So let me.
WeWork. Okay. Connect to our complimentary line. Let's just do that.
I can't see who is. All right. Oh, great. So we have one person here. And now I'm gonna. Do you know who's this guy? Bird Zanzer?
Yes, he's from Amazon.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think I have seen him in the meetups.
Yeah, he is.
So I figured that he
he's
must.
a solution architect over there. Very, very helpful to us.
Okay. All right, let's see. Okay. So in order to log into that, all you need is to download the app.
You know what? I'm not quite there yet because
Okay.
I logged in and it's now I'm on, but it's saying no internet. So I'm on WeWork guest and it says open but no internet.
Do you have any firewall set up?
No. Now this seems more to be related to the security here. So let me restart and see. And I set it up to be pretty promiscuous, like I don't mind what people see when I'm browsing, so let's just restart and see.
Well, I'm usually prepared. So if you needed to like give me your file in a USB, I can do that.
Okay.
So yeah, but let's go on. The internet should hopefully work. Okay.
Yeah, I might have to maybe talk to somebody at the front desk because it just keeps bouncing me back and forth between the sign-in page.
Okay. Okay, you know, actually that would help me because in the meantime I can follow up with people and see
Yeah.
out of these 11 people who is coming. I will be.
You can show all of this if you need to.
You could just pull up your Wi-Fi so I can connect to a different network.
How you doing?
Good, how are you?
It turns out that the guest access wouldn't allow us to.
Yeah, so you always have to be on
Okay.
the WeWork Wi-Fi next to the TV.
Hmm. Okay.
This one? Yeah, it's
It's really nice.
thank you. This was a personal purchase because the one that they give me to work, it's a Surface,
Oh.
but it's the i5 and it's like.
And it doesn't work? Yeah, so you'll just have access and then enter that 4-digit PIN at the bottom, it's 5129. You should be good to go.
I entered it here.
Enter your name. Oh, okay, so it wants you to just sign in first.
Try that real quick.
I'm gonna ask you for the 4-digit code. That's what
Okay.
it's
Okay. Can you do the key? 29. Oh, so this means I'll be able then to broadcast it?
Yeah, and it automatically stream. You didn't write any of this on here, did you? This was left here.
No, yeah.
Let me erase it. Sorry about that.
Oh, no worries. Actually, I'm not going to use that
Okay.
side of the board, but that side is enough.
There was a meeting in here all day, and I don't think they just came out, so I don't think anyone got in here to erase.
They were too excited to leave it.
I guess.
I understand.
Oh, cooking with gas.
Nice.
What's your name?
Stephanie,
Hey, thank you. This was.
no problem.
All right.
That's something I don't know if they thought about with meetups is the connecting to the TVs. You have to be on like the real network, not the guest network. It won't go. So I'm going to bubble that up.
Yeah, this is great.
Interesting to see how this would actually broadcast this thing. Because the screen seems.
Oh, you have a camera over there? Or is that just?
This is the front camera of. So this is the first time we're trying the YouTube live channel.
Okay.
So
So save as something people can watch
yes,
later?
yes, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I get a full version of it too. Thanks.
Sure, no problem.
So, well, it's still at 2, so we'll see how many people join. But it flips the. I think it flips the text. Okay.
We're not broadcasting the camera.
Yeah, we are. Yeah.
Oh, so this is live right now?
Yes, yes.
Oh, all right. Well,
Yeah.
Giddy up.
Hopefully not, but. Yeah, if it happened that nobody showed up today, which is really surprising because this is the first time I ever had a meetup. Two people being here at 6:13 now. We have definitely we can do repetition of this session in the next for the next one.
Okay.
I'm brainstorming hard to see what we can do. That one has 20 people and 20 people on meetup, so almost 40 people have RSVP'd at least.
Okay.
And I can go on and start with my slides, and we'll see how many people will show up. And if nobody showed up, I leave it to you.
I think at that point maybe we just call it and do it next time so that there's some like a live vibe versus
yeah. Okay, so all right. Let me set this off here now. And what was the name of the app to do the live stream right now? You're using
Solstice Quick.
I was hoping that at least I can meet Alex. I've never seen him in the meetups. He's been telling me that he'll come up to one of the meetups. Never actually came, so surprised that he couldn't come. What was the code? Maybe you want to stop so I can see how to log in.
It's still just showing.
Like
I can try to stop presenting to this thing. I'm gonna messages here and then try to redo it. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing. There it is, 5129.
All right, so we gotta do that, and we are going with that. Okay. All right, so what I wanted to record and actually talk about today, and hopefully we'll be having you again next year. So I'm gonna presenting this basically to you and recording it in the meantime. Was to put out the announcement for the LAN for the meetups and the paid packages for Philly Talent, which is basically the 1-year plan behind LAN, and a little bit basics of introductions to machine learning and data, and why it is happening the way it is happening right now. So maybe, although your face won't be in the recording, but maybe I ask you what is your perspective on AWS and how you use AWS within your team, and we'll start with that.
Okay.
And what problems you're looking at and you see value in most of the time, mostly. And we'll start with that.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
So from an industry perspective, the most important thing for us at Anexinet when it comes to SageMaker is a really practical, pragmatic thing. And that is that it's reliable and it's easy to use. So a data scientist can log into SageMaker for the first time, go to the dashboard and be presented with a very, very direct and repeatable data science pipeline. So in SageMaker, there's a way to use pre-canned algorithms, or you can do bring your own algorithms, and depending upon which one you're going to use, you can be off and running. So you could use blazing text, you could pull in something from your own data science catalog of things you wrote yourself. You can pull in something from scikit-learn.
Right.
But there's a build, train, tune, and deploy methodology that SageMaker advocates for. And it makes it so that you can show working models to your project team within minutes or hours. Now, those models wouldn't be capable of being released out into the wild. You wouldn't, put them on a Flask endpoint and use them in real time, but they allow you to get started.
Okay.
And, then with enough data and splitting your testing and training sets and doing hyperparameter tuning, you can, in short order, publish those models and have them up and running in production. So the time to market is incredibly quick with SageMaker.
So that fact that it's so fast and easy to launch is one key value point, and how reliable and how basically a robust platform it is that you can actually run your work on. It's another point.
And they thought of everything. My first experience with SageMaker was I was a doubter, and they say that the converted make the best zealots.
Okay.
So I didn't want to hear about Amazon, and I was struggling with other platforms, which shall remain nameless.
Right.
And I tried SageMaker, and fully expecting when I uploaded my data science project in Jupyter Notebook for there to be scores of problems, libraries that wouldn't be found, just issues.
Yes.
So I did, restart kernel and run all, expecting the worst, and I didn't really see much, anything at all. So I was kind of worried, like, is this thing running? What's happening? And then I scrolled to the bottom. It had run through the entire set of my pipeline.
Okay.
Pulled in the data because I had already located it in the right folder. I wasn't using S3 at the time, just local data folder. Split, trained, fit the classifier, and spit out a reliability score all in one shot. I didn't have to pull anything in. Everything I needed was there. All the data science libraries were there.
Right.
And then I thought I would get fancy and pull some stuff in that wasn't there. I didn't even have to break out to a command shell. I could just write from within Jupyter do pip install. So it's just, it's as good as it gets.
Yeah, no, that's value. Have you compared it with any other tools out there, like?
I'll tell you the list I compared it to, but I want to be gentle. I'm not going to render opinions on the others, but I started off with Gradient from Paperspace, and I'm a fan of Paperspace, and I want to see them break out and do something great, and I think eventually they will. I've got accounts on Collaboratory and GCP, Google Cloud Platform.
Okay.
Azure, Workbench, and Cognitive Services, including Lewis, and worked with all of these.
Oh yeah.
And as I said earlier, I'm not going to say anything negative about any of the players, but I would just tell you that my prayers were answered as soon as I started experimenting in SageMaker. Okay. And I do not work for Amazon. I don't get paid to say any of this. It's just they make my life a lot easier.
It works for you.
Yeah. And clients these days have weeks, not months, to see an end-to-end machine learning solution, because this is the world we live in now.
Yes.
And you can't make it that way, trying to outfit your own rig and add your own GPUs and pull down the latest NVIDIA CUDA 9.1 and
just installing the setup.
Just that whole thing's going to take weeks. And I've done that too. And at the end, you have something that's completely out of date, and you have to go back and upgrade all your packages anyway.
Right. Well, it happens. My background, when I was working in academic research work, supporting a lot of research that they were doing with PhDs and graduate students, we were maintaining these modules, so GPFS system, IBM systems, 10 years ago, and just putting stuff on like RPM packaging things and managing Python 2, Python 3, R is updating every month. Yeah. So, and now it still is the same, even faster, but at least like a lot of packages are not even beta. Like back then it was like RStudio was beta.
Yeah.
You need a PhD to just set up that on a cluster.
Oh, yeah, it's a living just keeping that stuff updated.
That's a value that I see that most people sort of take it for granted, but they don't realize how cheap it is that you can get stuff running now.
Yeah.
And like full power, like you mentioned CUDA a couple of times. Do you use the CUDA GPUs for your work, or?
So we at Anexinet we do everything in the cloud.
Okay.
But for personal experiments, I have GPU enabled rigs, and again had to go through the hell of downgrading. So I had a PC that shipped with CUDA 9, but I had to go to 8.1 because I wanted to do some Keras experimentation, but TensorFlow at the time needed the prior version of the CUDA libraries.
Right.
So this is, there's a weekend.
Yes.
Just, messing around
Yes.
with all that and
Yeah.
connecting it back together, not to mention if you're doing it on your own rig. So what are you going to use, right? Eclipse or Spider or Visual Studio or VS Code, setting up all the class paths and making those, play together. So,
Yes. No, that would be another spaghetti like situation. Like
Yeah.
to figure out which way you want to start with.
Yeah.
Yeah. One thing that I'm going to do a lot at LAN for 2019 would be focusing on certification.
Yep.
And the attitude would be to put basically a standard practice for IaaS, right, in infrastructure, and as a service, and AWS here for us. So what do you have for that, like in terms of good practice, things that you use, or your team uses, I mean,
Yep.
and you recommend, and then I want to use as much input as I can before
Sure.
going very quickly about I only have 2 slides.
Okay.
So the ultimate goal for the first 3 months would be to bring together people who are serious about the certifications, or actually taking the exams, whether they want to start with the associate, or they want to with the DevOps, or they want to build up, or they want to go with the higher professional certificates, would have a community to be able to network with. And in the meantime, people who would be speakers will come from, like, again, startups and companies that they bring in their own expertise and the background in the sense of good practice. So this good practice, what do you think of that when you hear it?
So I think good practice can go down 2 paths. One is more of an industry-based path, accepted things like well-architected, obviously, from Amazon. Then there's what I'll call homegrown good practices.
Right.
So, we at Anexinet have a set of principles that we adhere to. We believe in as few moving parts as possible, especially when you're doing work for hire. The more things that you leave a client with, the higher their total cost of ownership, because there's more to maintain. So we try to do everything elegantly with as few moving parts. When it comes to machine learning, we start with the simplest algorithms and then work our way into deep networks. There are problems that don't require some of the latest thinking in white papers. You might just be fine with a naive Bayes classifier. That might do it. So we start small.
Yeah.
We start practical. The other thing that I'll throw in is when it comes time for exam prep, there's a couple of ways to go about that. One is just forcing knowledge into your head and spitting it back out so you can say you're certified. And the other, I think, is really living it.
Okay. Yes.
And what I like about what you're doing as far as I think you want to be one of those people that guides people through really living it.
Right.
So
yeah, that's my goal.
Yeah.
Hopefully, that would be great. That would just like the
So to that end, I'm excited about what you're doing, and maybe there's a way for guest speakers like myself to participate where we can provide almost like cheerleaders. We can provide some motivation. Like, hey, this is really happening in the world. Folks are actually doing this. There are clients in the tri-state area and throughout the country that really need this. It's not just a cert that you hope you can use when you're done. Folks are dying for this, and also proper motivation. Don't get the cert in order to add some letters after your name. Get the cert so that you feel very confident, when challenged, that you'll very quickly either have the answer or know where to find it.
That's great. That's exactly the vision that I'm pursuing for. I'm testing it too.
Yeah.
So it's not just some idea. Been doing it for now 4 months in 2018.
Yeah.
And the idea of moving this forward to where undergrads or even high school students can actually run scripts.
Yeah.
is not like it's not crazy anymore.
No.
You can have them have access to these platforms, and before they graduate, they can have few different services work together, and then have their design shown to someone who's in practice and can see things that might fail, but they don't know.
Yeah.
And that feedback is priceless because it's specific to that work they have, and also it would be, in a way, it would be connecting the talent to the profession, to the business, and to the industry. Which, who knows how the industry is going to use that and leverage that.
Yeah.
But that's just one thing I'm excited about to see how that would work.
And I would say, from my perspective, as I start to close my part of this out, and then you can do your slides, I would just say that another thing I would hope to bring, and hopefully your guest speakers bring, is also a sense of calm. We strive, all of us, to get the next thing, the next cert or this promotion, or to prove that we can write using this new library. One thing I'd love to remind people of is that more than likely, whatever you're striving to do, you're already probably close to good enough at it to be functional in a job that needs that. I think a lot of times we hold ourselves back. We may not believe we're good enough until we get some sort of outside validation.
Right.
So as a person that hires people to do this sort of thing, I'd also like to bring just maybe a bit of relief or encouragement to let people know that it's far more achievable than a lot may think. There's a mystique now about machine learning that it's some far off magical thing. I by the way, never use the word AI. I don't think that that's very good for science fiction. However, machine learning is something you can do practically.
Okay.
But maybe the guest speakers can help people feel perhaps even closer to their goal. Because as we break down these roles in machine learning, you don't have to be this lone wolf that knows it all, that has read all the white papers of every algorithm, and also understands data wrangling and security, and can also speak to the C-suite, and at the same time bring up a database from scratch, and also be amazing at .NET, which would be the surrounding application. I mean, you don't and a killer designer that's great with you don't have to do all those things. No, you can pick an area and kill it. Be really good in that area, and that's fine. And then just surround as necessary. And it's also okay to go down into an area and decide after a little while, maybe either the market is dry around here for this area, and I'm going to branch out. But the experimentation that anybody does right now, I think, in machine learning, no matter how small, it moves you forward, and you have a good story to tell. So if you say to somebody, I was playing around on Kaggle, I didn't win the competition, but I learned a heck of a lot when I was doing the Titanic, and then maybe the next step after that.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much need for people who have practical machine learning skills. That merely that separates you across the desk from somebody giving an interview, from a person who didn't stay up a little late and experiment and play a little bit. If you know what I mean.
Actually, I understand. And what you said about this sense of calm, we actually was surprisingly very new. You don't hear that much of. It's not something that people talk about. That. Yeah. Everybody is talking about. I found this neat, interesting library. I mean, I also manage a Twitter channel and Town AI. Every day, I'm not going to pretend that we don't. We post at least 3 new libraries.
Sure.
And then people share it and they like it sometimes, and you can see that if they like something, how quickly it gets out.
Right.
And it's really interesting to me that you're saying that sense of calm, and how you see it as a long-term practice versus wanting to prove and fight different battles on different fronts. And so where is it coming from? Like, do you see that there's a lot of people that you are interviewing that are out of touch with the reality of the work?
No. I don't think people are out of touch. And maybe I'm just revealing,
I agree.
Some
Personally, I agree with that. I think we need that, but
So-
I think it's actually very important to anybody who is doing this.
Yeah. Well,
Because there's so much buzz, and it's
Yes.
actually unhealthy.
And you get carried away. So, even on the train in, I'm looking at, the latest papers on RVIX, and I want to read about ODE and replacing these layers with calculus, and that's a major breakthrough, right? But, But I think what happens sometimes is we get so carried away with the latest thing that we don't take stock in what we've learned recently and how we've gotten stronger and better at things. So when I say calm, no matter what stage of your career you're in, it's so easy, especially in technology space and particularly in machine learning, it's very easy to feel, like you said, threatened or out of touch, or they know more. And, one sensation that I would love to bring is just a bit of calmness, which is if you're staying up late and playing with this stuff, if you're working at it on the weekends, or if you're lucky enough to do it during your day job, you're already ahead of the pack. It's not necessary to be miles and miles ahead, and this isn't a race to win. We should be working with our colleagues and all of us move forward together. But the reason I'm saying all this is because there's too much mystique about machine learning now in both camps, both from the media, but I think there's also a lot of mystique that gets in the way of the aspiring professionals that are moving into this area. It feels very threatening. It feels like a 60% grade, climbing up a mountain. And it doesn't have to be. There can be a graduated path, and certifications can help you feel more secure. But hangouts like this, folks like yourself that are giving back, I think this is the real way that it happens. It's human to human.
Yep. Yeah. It's funny because like the first the first part that I wanted to talk about was just to break it down to people based on not only things that I felt like over the years, but based on things that people who've been in the industry for even longer, bigger contractors telling me that like the whole mystique of this whole game, this whole challenge, as you say, of data science, it's all for industry. Let me put it this way. I know two stories. One is the academic story of people in academia, because I was there. I sit at the tables with people who are working with PhD students that want to graduate them. And I also been working with the industry. And it's interesting to me because I feel that both groups do not talk the problem they have in the way that I see it. Maybe they don't see it that way. For example, to me, I was just at UPenn, one faculty was presenting about asking better questions for designing chatbots. And when he was showing the numbers, the scores, it was basically showing how amazing these libraries are doing out of Google, out of this place. He mentioned the point that this database already has all the answers. So that's one problem with these numbers of the scores, is that when they were training on it and they were testing on it, they sort of were like cheating because they were seeing the results sort of when they were doing the training. And
so you're saying the test set was corrupt because
because they had the answers. And then the next slide he was proposing that and they corrected it, and this is not the real numbers. And then he was like, okay, now this is what we did, right? And that's the biggest problem that I see in academia, that you have all these sandbox. But the sandbox in data science is the data. Now, that's how far you can really go. But when you're always using the same database, for example, if you're always using ResNet images that everybody else is using and is the only database that was put out, then your solution is basically limited. Your papers are also limited. So that goes down to all the work that is being done. Now, I don't want to question all the work that is done in academic work, but in the meantime, you have all these talents that want to get out and they want to go get the job. And they're insecure too, and they are worried like what's going to happen in the interview, like what is going to be asking me about. And you can tell it because when they ask questions in the presentation, the questions doesn't make sense. It's like a rehearsed question. It's like a question that you're practicing for getting something else, like which is a job. And so then on the other side, the academic, like from the profession side, what I see is that need for good talent. But when you say good talent, then you have these industries that they know the problem, they know what they want, and no matter what focus field in data science you have, you need to go and understand the problem first.
You have to be, we use the word pragmatic a lot. You have to, quote unquote, work backwards. You have to know enough data science to have some sense of where you would map a problem to, a model, an algorithm. But you don't have to have written an earth-shattering new algorithm. And I think a lot of people don't realize you
Yeah.
don't have to. Now, I'm not advocating for everybody, dropping what they're doing and just do drag and drop and we all give up and use Data Robot. And it's a fine platform. I'm not saying let's all just dumb it down and do drag and drop. I'm not saying that. But at the same time, we don't all of us, have to be, Jeff Hinton and, create, invent backpropagation.
Right. So for that, like getting that education, one of the issues one of the reasons that I've been doing what I'm doing and sort of a payback too for myself was to bridge this gap. So I'm going to tell you what I mean by that in one slide. But here, what I was talking about was how simple is the whole big scheme of things. Like you basically have the data, and the data is, they call it, like I was talking to the KPMG guys like about a few months ago, and they call it the zero law. The first rule of data science is the data, that we don't talk about it, but it's the most important part. And then you want to manipulate it and make it into a model, because that model is what you need. And then how good you're doing, how close you are to that is basically your loss functions, which is basically just two things, L1, L2, L2. Like it's just two metrics. Now, no matter what it is, it's neural network or any other thing, it's like a tweak to that. And it's basically solving the computation side of things. It's not really even solving the storage side of things. The storage is still like the killer problem, even in the research. And now, why we have problem with the model? Because I don't want to go over too much details, but the academics prove that it does not exist. There is no complete solution to that optimization. You have the cost function. There's no one optimization method algorithm that can solve that. Okay,
that's its own industry too. Like you can say L1, L2 penalties, then you can just, we can argue about like Laplace versus, ridge smoothing. Like there's no
some problem to solve.
Yeah, there's no end of like the intricacies of how we can optimize gradient descent. But what I would say, and I think this is where you're going, 9/10 of the time, you're not going to get into that argument in industry until you're way down the path, and you're not even going to help your client until you've first done the harder stuff, which is all the data preparation, all of the cleansing, all the normalization, all of the, taking the meta fields and making these examples, and that stuff is why a lot of these projects never get off the ground. It's not because at the end, two people are quibbling about whether or not they should use, TANH or switch or leaky value. That stuff is like all of the math geekery. I love the geekery, but that's not why these projects fail, and that's not why they don't get off the ground.
Yes, so it is. It goes back to that data part, and the data part is the part that I was mentioning that comes from the industry, from the business, and it is the killer point. It is a different world when you talk to a researcher in academic world, though. It is like, we have the data. The data, what's the data? It's a resonant data. We don't care about that. We have it. So now, the plan I have for what I'm going to do is actually, I'm going to record this part myself.
Okay. Is it still recording?
No, the whole thing is recording.
But even now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, because you're leaving. And I think I'm going to see how many people. All right. I'm going to set you go.
Okay.
So you have two people here. I'm going to work with them.
Awesome.
And
then let's get back in touch to try it again when we got maybe a little bit more localized turnout.
Yeah. Well, people should show up. Like everybody should show up, and it's when you set it for free. Then some people do not. And next year it won't be free. So that will be more control when it's not free. At least I know that how many people are actually going to commit.
Yeah.
But for the next week,
yeah,
I'm going to talk to Alex.
Yeah.
And have you as the speaker instead of the other person.
Okay.
And focus more on actually seeing how many people are going to committing to come. So make sure that I have at least 10, 15 people
Perfect.
coming in. And I think that would be the best thing to do. Yeah.
Excellent.
And the simplest thing.
Yeah.
Manage less.
Yeah.
And it would be better. For
Yeah,
you.
and everybody can kind of rely on this.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, my friend.
All right. Thanks.
Keep on fighting the good fight. I'll be back.
Okay. All right. Thanks for coming again, and I'll talk to you.
Bye.
Okay. So I'm going to go over back to the slides. I have to come back here. So I hope that you had a good idea of what was going on. Let me close this door. All right. I hope you had a good feedback from good input from what Michael had to say about his work and his Linus background. I'm going to go very quickly about actually what we talked about. The two stories, we already talked a lot about it, but every data science problems that is being addressed right now and is eventually going to answer one question about a data set, and that's the model data. Now, the model that is going to be the answer is created by an algorithm. So the algorithm transforms the data into a model that can be used and can be leveraged for a goal. Now, how good and how close are we to that goal is the ultimate is the measure method. So the loss functions that are very common is the L2 and L1 and L2 norm, a linear and nonlinear form. Now, with regard to every other methods and combination of these methods, whether you can apply it in different ways. Like you can have an algorithm that just applies this L1 and L2 norms to your model. We talk very quickly about the gradients and other boosting methods and other baggings and all that. But ultimately, you have a cost function that you want to minimize. And in order to minimize it, you want to have a ruler. And the ruler that you have is two types, is L1 and L2. And you can go on and create more rulers, but they become computationally very expensive. And as they become expensive, they're not very interesting. Now, the data science is a rush eventually because of the rush for the data. So if you have a solution to a problem, this means that more people are going to submit their data and you're going to have more interaction with people and you're going to grow more data. And that's the ultimate goal. So it starts with data and it ends in data. That's why it is the most important thing that to realize that where you are, if you are in this business, in this industry, the most important thing is that to realize that your processes, your work, your modeling, your improvements and everything should be able to update according to the data, because the data is supposed to grow. That's a part of the work. If it is not growing, the work is not growing, and it is a dead work. So these stories and these aspects of work that are in practice are one of the more, we mentioned the word pragmatic, and the keyword in industry, and the same way in academic work that we use a lot of time, the word robust, but different solutions. In the industry and in academia work, one of the way to tackle this problem is to break it down into different problems. 3 types of questions: how many, what, and how, which is, you can write it down as a combination of how many and what, is one way of tackling that. So how many is most of the time solved by linear algorithms. What becomes sort of a binary yes or no kind of a question, and it's sort of a classification problem, and how is what you have is how many and what. But for example, like Google Map problem and how you are going from one point to the other. And as you are going up, the clarity of the problem and how you're clearly explaining and defining your situation becomes the most important thing. So that's the required clarity part. Now, what is happening right now, and with my talk with Michael, I did not touch this because he was leaving, is that the pace of the growth of the data and the market have outgrown the solutions and the education in a way. So you have a lot of other solutions like Kaggle, Udemy, Udacity. You can put so many on this part that are now bridging the gap, bringing more updated methods from industry into the talents so that they will be more ready to keep up with the pace. Because as I said, it's the nature of the job that the data should be growing and the targets will be moving, and so with that will be your models and your work. And that's the goal with LAN, is to just come in between these two. Not just be a third party, but also be able to connect these two. So for 2019, we'll have 6 meetups for networking for the people who are taking the certifications. The reason we were focusing on certifications, as I mentioned to Michael, is to focus on good practice. And good practice is sort of thinking forward and extrapolating in a way to see what you need. And it's sort of learning by itself. So it's not just about understanding and getting a certificate or passing an exam. It's really about having that as your day-to-day routine work so that you be connected with the people who will be commenting or publishing those white papers that you would need in order to pass the exam. So that's more important than the actual title. So there will be 6 meetups, 2 per month, for Tuesdays and Wednesdays. These will be an opportunity where people can come here and actually meet with each other and hang out and go over what they did. What they will be working on will be the basic foundation of a common ground. There will be the contents that was created during this year, during the past meetups, putting them in a new format that would have almost 5 chapters for each month. So we can cover 2 chapters per session, and we'll have a Reddit account, a Patreon account, and other channels set up so that people who want to commit to actually do these scripts and have a hands-on experience with these scripts would also be able to log in to our AWS accounts and won't be needing their own laptop. They could just all they would need is to just focus on dev practices in AWS, and also it would give me a better way to make sure I have the right metrics to measure the performance of the people who I will call them a batch. A batch of people will be a group of members that are committing to go and put the time and finish in this 3-month run and finish the content. So we'll have a prize hopefully, and that's one thing I'm working on. And we'll have an update visualization of the performance and the work that everybody's doing on their clusters, you may call them, and on their account, based on the contents. Now, the contents would provide guidelines, right? In each chapter, you will be basically using specifically some services like DynamoDB, databases, S3 buckets with EC2, Hadoop cluster with Elasticsearch, but you can also have the freedom to grow it more further. and or even change it, not exactly follow the exact tutorial. But what you need to do is just use those specific services so that by the end of the 3 months, every service, every product on AWS is used. The key products are not all the products. The key products like the CloudFormation, the SQS, the Lambda methods, those products, the EC2, the S3, and then there's this design and the perspective on working with them, like, for example, the bigger one is the IAM role and the privacy and the security. So these are what eventually you expect to see a growth in you. Between the week 1 and the last week, you expect to see that you're doing a lot better with your projects and with the way you're setting everything up. And that will be more than enough for you to understand how different it is to do something on a self-taught, or if you're coming from academic background, from academic to an industry or or some work that is more industry based. So with that being said, I hope that I see you at LAN, and you can review the past work that we had on the GitHub repositories, and I will be announcing the new meetup sessions this weekend, along with the updates on the GitHub repo and different packages for setting up on Patreon. Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna end it here now. But if you have any questions, I can answer now. Otherwise, I will work on the video and chop it into smaller pieces and upload it into the onto the website. Okay.